Looks like it's working this time. Alright guys, for those of you who are here early, thank you for being here early, and welcome to the breakdown for this week. Confirm for me if you guys can hear me, please. I think I figured out what the issue is. YouTube changed the interface from within, like, the YouTube side of it, instead of the OBS side. Okay, cool, and it looks like we have not too much of a delay unlike last time, so that's great. Okay, I will send out the notification Discord and we can get started. Talbot or Henry? So, I think at this point in their careers, I have to favor Talbot. The weird thing about it is that people are assuming if Henry wins, it'll be because he takes down Talbot because of the issues that Talbot had against Barcelos. I think the more likely path for Talbot to lose here, if he is going to lose, is likely going to be via the striking, because Talbot loves to block all strikes possible with his chin. Like, his defensive striking is abysmal. Maybe it's because he just knew his last opponents didn't have the power to hurt him. Against Cejudo, even an older Cejudo, I don't love that strategy. So we'll see what happens there. I am going to pick Talbot because I think, again, Cejudo's old, he hasn't been looking spectacular, and Talbot does have the power to put him out, but we'll have to see what happens. Official Fight Lab didn't sabotage his live, yeah, exactly. Thoughts on the Nicole performance last Saturday? I've seen better hands on a snake. Eloquent way of putting it, yeah. Yeah, he just seemed scared to throw. I mean, he wasn't going to get a takedown without throwing first. I don't know what he was doing. I think that for some fighters, even if they don't, like, quote-unquote quit, they'll hit a point where they're like, oh, this is not going to be an easy enough fight, and they'll just mentally check out from there. It felt like that's what he did. Cejudo got a chin on him, though. Yeah, he definitely does. Granted, with his age, I don't know if it's going to hold up, especially if Talbot really goes for the highlight. We'll have to see what happens. What did not cross your mind picking Magomed versus Alex? I mean, if you watch that stream, I said that Alex definitely could win if he showed up, and I just had to pick Ankalaev because Alex hadn't shown up in his last two fights, in my opinion. But, as I had said many times, Alex was a terrible stylistic matchup for Magomed, and I'm not surprised at all that he won. Cejudo's head belongs on Kelvin's body. It's so disproportionate, it's crazy. Yeah, I get what you mean. Main event's curse finally broke with Charles win. Yes, it did. I'm glad that one panned out how I thought it was. I feel like the odds were, like, gaslighting me into thinking that it was going to be a close fight, because stylistically, I didn't see a way for Gamrot to win, but glad that that was a good read. Any early locks for Onama versus Garcia? I mean, I'd say Garcia. Onama just has not impressed me in any of his fights, in all honesty. Like, if you look at the Romero fight, like, his last two fights, he was struggling on the feet, which is not a good look, especially against Romero, because Romero proved in his next fight to not even be a spectacular striker. Against Giga, that's who. It's not a terrible thing to be losing on the feet, but I don't know. Bro, it took like 5 minutes for chat to load on the new YouTube UI. I don't know why YouTube insists on continuously changing things. It just gets worse and worse. Onama would lose to Pico. Very possible. What's up, Oracle? Hey, how are you doing, Mr. Mike? How are we feeling on Manuel Torres KO versus Dawson? Yeah, he should knock out Dawson. Hot take, I think Robocop is a bad matchup for Chimaev. I get why you're saying that, but I don't think that he would necessarily hold up there. He hasn't really been tested at that level yet, and like his one test against Jared is just... I know that he rushed and he was doing well, but he's very capable of being caught. Like, we see him get caught by Bruno, and it's just because he's not defensively aware from all positions. And yeah, he's probably not going to get knocked out by Chimaev, but Chimaev could feint up top, probably get his guard up and then shoot under and such. Oh yeah, what do you think of Aaron Pico? Loki, you think Murphy got lucky and Pico's pretty good. So Pico 100% outperformed how I thought he was going to look as long as the fight lasted. I was pretty confident Murphy was going to win, especially because I thought Pico would slow down with the pace that he was going for in round 1. And Pico's biggest problem, in my opinion, is that I don't know why, he just seems to refuse to take a BJJ class. He was wrestling as spectacular, but as soon as he gets guys down, they just get up immediately because he can't hold them there at all. So if he would just change his strategy and start training a bunch of grappling and like getting positions to land ground and pound, he would have a much higher success rate, in my opinion. But yeah, on the feet, I did think he looked fairly good. Do you think that RDR stands the best chance against Chimaev? Not really, just because RDR is so defensively irresponsible on the feet. I think he would get chinned, probably. I think if we're saying who has like the best chance of everyone left, it's probably Imavov. Not that Imavov has the best grappling out of them, but because Imavov has a chance of chinning Chimaev and the rest just don't. Hamzat or Yuri? I think Yuri has a solid chance there. It's hard to say, and it really depends what Yuri shows up. That's going to be a question until he fights again. Robocop cooks Kopylov, though. Very possible, yeah. Pico's TJ without the chin, fair. I mean, he doesn't quite have the movement either, but I get what you mean. Is Kevin going to have another exciting loss Saturday? We'll get to that one. I have mixed feelings on it. Drakus will come back and defeat Hamzat. It's possible. Everyone's acting like there's no chance whatsoever he could beat Chimaev. His grappling fundamentals, sorry, not his grappling, his wrestling fundamentals just looked horrific defensively in that fight. So if he was to just train that for like a year straight and come back, there's a chance he does better, especially because you don't have to out-wrestle Chimaev. You just have to make Chimaev work enough to the extent that he slows down. Because even in round 5, we saw Chimaev slow down after dominating the entire fight and almost got finished. So if Drakus could give more opposition and make that happen in, say, round 3, well, then he has a solid chance of winning. Olberg or Chimaev? That's a tough one because we haven't really seen Olberg fight a nasty wrestler. I just don't have the highest opinion of Olberg in general, so I'm probably going to say Chimaev, but I'm not confident either way. I hate picking Brendan Allen fights, too much sounds. I agree with you there. Thoughts on Strickland's chances? He's been outing himself as the only guy to beat Chimaev, but I'm not too high on his chances. I think his chances are higher than the general public thinks, because his grappling is absurd for that weight class, and he doesn't like to show it off. But from everything I've heard from people who have trained with him and everything coming out of that gym, his wrestling and grappling is like, if he actually used it offensively, he would be subbing a lot of people. So I do think it's a better chance. That being said, I can't pick him because with how tall he stands, he is definitely very prone to getting taken down. And if Chimaev is going for his new game plan of I'm just going to hold people down and not worry about getting the finish, we could see a control-heavy decision from Chimaev. Leron or Volk? I'm going to say probably Volk. I think he's just a bit cleaner on the feet. Watch any Dana White's Contender Series. Thoughts on Imanol or John Pork as prospects? Okay, I think that John Pork is already overrated, to be honest, because that style of Muay Thai looks very pretty, but tends not to hold up when you face high-level comp. It happened for Guram also. Guram has the exact same style of striking. And then when Guram started fighting decent strikers, it was just way too easy to take advantage of because the defense sucks. So same thing with John Porkage. We saw him get dropped in round 1. Like, guys in the UFC are better than his opponent. So I don't think it's going to go well for him. Imanol, he'll be fun. I think he is a legit fighter. Do you think Drakus jumping guillotines in the first 2 rounds played a part in the bigger picture of Chimaev's domination and confidence in the fight? I think that the first guillotine, it was like, okay, you're dry, you think you could lock it up, maybe, okay, fine. I don't love it, but whatever. After that, it was stupid. Like, and yeah, I do think it played a role because you're not making him work if you're like willing to pull the guillotine there. So I do think it did play a role. I don't think it was a massive role, and that I still think he would have lost either way, but it was not a good idea. Do you think Jan does better in the rematch with Merab than the first match, or the same? I think Jan's going to get finished, in all honesty, because he doesn't seem to be evolving. Like, he's still a very good fighter, but the Jan we see now is really the Jan we saw 3-4 fights ago, and Merab keeps getting better. Do you think Van beats Pantoja? Personally, I think he gets subbed pretty early. It's really going to depend on if he can stuff the first takedown, and it's very hard to predict that, because if you want to say, like, okay, he hasn't fought a wrestler the level of Pantoja, yeah, that's a very logical take, and you could say he's just going to get taken down, backpacked, and subbed. If he is able to figure out a way to stuff that first takedown, and he does have a very high takedown defense percentage, to be fair, so if he manages that, then he has a chance, but it's very coin flippy in that sense. What do you think? Some people have nasty ground and pound and some don't. I mean, ground and pound is partially about the power, and it's partially about how you control your opponent, because you need to be able to posture, get space without losing them, and then hit them. So it's not just about the striking, it's also about how you set up the striking. RDR gets it done by sub, or do you think LNKO, or by what? We'll get to that in the breakdown. I was laughing at the main event when Charles pressured Gamrot. He looked like he was about to climb the cage to get away. Yeah, Gamrot did not like the pressure. I'm glad I made a good read there on Gamrot not liking pressure, because that was very apparent. DDP should train with Burns or Craig Jones. I would definitely say Craig Jones. I don't think Burns is the best idea, because he's not going to develop like a nasty guard like Burns has, but Craig Jones is a good idea. RDR via sub is the best pick. We'll get to that. What specifically did you think Merab is getting better at? His striking is a lot cleaner, his timing and his setups are much better with that. Even his wrestling has better setups now, it's not as one-dimensional as it used to be. His power definitely seemed like it increased. It may not necessarily be his power, just his willingness to use like his body weight and such, but he's definitely more dangerous on the feet, if you get what I mean. And I do think his submissions probably are evolving as well. So he's just slowly progressing like every fighter should, where I feel like Jan is kind of stopped. I hope RDR wins fair. Brady and Morales is a super interesting fight to me. Who do you have winning? I'm leaning Brady right now. I think he just has more ways to win. His boxing has gotten much better. His cardio has gotten much better. And of course, his grappling is ridiculous. I think if Van can really put a lot of hands on Pantoja, which is very possible, it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, agreed. Khabib had nasty ground and pound. Yeah, but it's definitely because he controlled the position. Junior Tafa with no training camp versus DJ with 8-week training camp. DJ subs him within like 30 seconds. What's your ethnicity, big bro? Do you have any MMA experience yourself? Why do you want to know my ethnicity? I don't talk about personally identifiable details or whatever you want to call it on stream usually. But in terms of MMA experience myself, I have a fair amount of years in training it. I never competed in MMA directly. I did compete in some striking-only stuff earlier in my life, though that is not an option anymore, unfortunately. I heard some people say that Gamrot is a bad matchup for Charles, and I just didn't see it. Yeah, me neither. I'm glad Figgy got the win. I had confidence Montel would not do enough. Would rather to go to a 29-28 split with Figgy in Brazil. I don't know why Montel was just doing nothing. Like, it was a very winnable fight for him, but I guess that is what it is. Do you think Merab is going to TKO or sub Jan? I think sub probably, but I do think he will hurt him on the feet first. Thoughts on Dariush BSD? Could Dariush pull a Moicano kind of fight against BSD, granted probably with less effective ground and pound? Now that BSD has proper coaching, I don't see it happening. I mean, BSD is immensely talented. He just had a few fights where I don't know what he was doing in terms of his coaching and mindset and all of that. Now that he's with a proper coach and he seems to be progressing properly, he should probably chin Dariush. I've also hit 1500 on Figgy at plus 200. Nice. What do you think of the Bilal-Gary fight? I do think it heavily favors Gary, because Bilal is very one-dimensional in how he's going to approach things. He's just going to use sloppy boxing to pressure you and then try to shoot when you're against the fence, or he will back up and then force you to come forwards and then try to shoot as you go forwards, like he did against Luque. So it's not like Gary has to prep for something immensely dangerous here. He's just probably going to be able to unload with his strikes. I do think something very interesting about the fact, with Gary asking for 3 rounds instead of 5, I'm expecting Gary to go for a finish here. He said he wanted a finish, and he was very confidently saying he's going to get a finish. I think the 3-round fight supports that, because I think over 5 rounds he is very good. His cardio is usually extremely solid. Against Protest, he did gas, but that was short notice. So you would think that 5 rounds would favor him. What the 3 rounds tells me is that he's going to be throwing as hard as possible and wants a fallback, basically, in case he can't find the finish and gasses himself. Because I expect him to go very hard first 2 rounds, in my opinion. In regards to Strickland Chimaev, is it possible that Chimaev gets emotional, tries to chase a finish and gas out? It's definitely possible. If Strickland is able to create scrambles like a lot more than DDP did, then it is 100% possible that Chimaev gasses out. Never forget, we were picking John Silva to lose to William Gomez just a year ago. I don't know who we is on that one. I picked John Silva there, but fair enough. Hey. How sad would it be if Brady, after grinding to be #1 contender, just got fluked by a glancing shot? Yeah, that would be unfortunate for him. If Aiemann beats Vera, does he get the next title shot? Even though he has a good resume, I don't think he's going to. I think I'll probably need one more. Who's your pick for Rakic versus Mirzakhanov? I would need to do tape study on that one because it's a tough one to pick. Figgy really looks washed, so much less activity. Yeah, Figgy is not the same fighter he used to be. BSD said he was fighting with no head coach. Yeah. Rounds favors Gary so heavily. I would normally think no, actually, but in this case, yes, probably. Legend has it that Montel is still stuck in the octagon to this day. Are you excited for the 1FC Japan card? I need to look more at it, honestly. I'm not the best at continuously watching 1FC, even though it's like usually very entertaining. With Montel and other fighters with low IQ, you just can't confidently pick or bet on them. That is very true. What was your pick on 100 men versus 1 gorilla back when it was the big talk? Good question. I don't remember, honestly, what my pick was then. I think it really comes down to if the men are like have emotions or not, because if they get afraid, then they're gonna lose. If they have no fear and just like the first 20 are willing to die, then they're gonna win. That's an Ankalaev training footage from today. It seemed like his broken ribs have made an impeccable recovery. Yeah, I mean, it was obviously just an excuse. I don't think that he may have had some injury. Of course, all fighters tend to go into fights with injuries, but I don't think it was anything that crazy. What is one of your worst picks ever? One of mine is picking Azakura to beat Pantoja. I think my worst aging pick of all time was what's his name? Sergey against Aspinall. Stephen Miocic CTE with those multiple messages. Oh god. Am I crazy to say Dana White's Contender Series last week, best fight of all time, wasn't even top 5 in Contender Series history? Yeah, I honestly thought the Vlogden fight from the week before it was definitely better, because this fight, like, even though it was entertaining, it was questionable skill-wise, which kind of decreases the quality, in my opinion. Even though it was very fun. I'm not saying otherwise, to say the least. Muniz just got cut. I thought he was supposed to beat destroy Adesanya and Whitaker, the hardcore set. Yeah. Thoughts on Gary saying JDM will dominate the stand-up against Islam. I think that JDM will definitely win the minutes on the stand-up against Islam. His big concern is getting hit by a big shot if he drops his hands in the pocket, like when he thinks Islam's going to shoot and gets hit by like a head kick or something. To be fair, Aspinall was the underdog in the Sergey fight, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was around even odds. Maybe Aspinall was a mild underdog. Just did not age well in how it progressed very quickly, but that is what it is. It happens. My worst pick was Jose Medina over Adaba. I thought Adaba would gas out, Medina would pick it up. There's definitely logic in that, even if it didn't age well. I get what you're saying. Turns out Medina is the worst fighter of all time. Yes, very true. I'm saying thank you, I'm not complaining, people just need to chill. Yeah, exactly. Do you think that Jan has a better chance given the shoulder injury which prevented him from using his right hand? Yes, Jan doesn't involve him, but given how skilled he is, does he really need to? I did not love what we saw from Jan last fight. I really thought that he should have finished, what's his name? I'm blanking on it, but you guys know who I'm talking about. I feel like he should have finished him. I'm not high on that guy at all. And the fact that Jan just was not adapting to the point that he was really causing damage that fight concerned me. Do you think Marab is going to TKO Jan? I think he'll hurt him on the feet and then sub him. What's the read on Protez versus Leon? So Leon is too insistent on always backing up now, which is the problem. if he would actually just stand his ground and fight, he would have a solid chance against Prates, but he'll probably do what he normally does and get knocked out, because that's just what Leon likes to do. Marcus McGee, yeah, exactly. All right, I'm going to go into the breakdown quickly. This card is okay. All right. So starting with Croden versus Lisboa. So Croden got picked up for this card because she is Canadian. Both of these girls are Muay Thai strikers. Lisboa is more of a traditional like Muay Thai striker, where she'll strike from the outside and then is okay being in the clinch if like you give it to her, but she's not too desperate to get there. She throws combos proactively. She has added takedowns into her game. She has submissions. Her takedown defense kind of sucks, as we saw last fight, but overall reasonable fighter. Croden is very defensively irresponsible. She got dropped like 4+ times in one fight. It was really bad. If you throw strikes at her, all she will do is like move backwards with her hands down, kind of like the guy did on Contender Series when he got dropped, except much worse. So her defense is just non-existent. If Lisboa throws a combo, expect it to land. Croden, what she's going to do is try to work into the Muay Thai clinch and then just blast knees. That's pretty much her entire game plan. Just blast knees in the Muay Thai clinch and maybe like poke from long distance because she's so tall for that weight class. I'm going to favor Lisboa here because she's just the more well-rounded fighter here in a fight where neither of them have any spectacular skill set. Maybe Croden can get into the clinch and just use her knees and get to a decision that way, or maybe get a TKO. She does have a fair amount of stoppages. But Lisboa, if she just lets go with her hands, she could definitely drop Croden once or twice and either pick up a submission after she drops her or just win a decision that way, in my opinion. So, not the highest level fight, but we'll see what happens there. So I'm going to say, for official prediction, I'm going to say Lisboa by decision. I would not be surprised if it was a finish, though. Becoev versus, I never know how to say his name. I'll just say Yusuri. But Becoev, I feel like everyone has a very weird impression of who Becoev is. Maybe it's just because his first two fights look so dominant, but Becoev is not nearly as good as people think he is. He went to a split decision with Dylan Budka, in which he was in trouble many points throughout the fight. He's gotten rocked on the feet very badly by Can several times. He does have solid ground and pound if he gets it down, and he does have power on the feet, but the way he strikes is all just like loading up overhands and such. There's no real nuance to striking. There's no real like, oh, he's going to hit you with some cool counter and put you out that way. So his game plan is just throw bombs, then get on a single leg, maybe transfer to a double leg if he needs to, get you down, and then just land ground and pound there. I am not high on his future at all. That being said, so Belgar... Yusri, I'm just going to call him Yusri. So Yusri was, of course, a kickboxer before he came into MMA. In MMA, he's basically just using his length as efficiently as possible, let's say. He's throwing out a lot of jabs, a lot of long kicks. He'll throw 1-2s. He doesn't really do anything on the back foot, so if you pressure him, he'll kind of just move back and around. He's not going to be defensively irresponsible, like he'll circle properly and such, but he's not going to really throw much offense there. He has kind of low volume. He does hit hard, so if he lands, the fight can be over. But if he just falls behind, sometimes it just progresses in that direction because he's not going to like pick up the pace and look for a finish, really. His second Contender Series fight was a really bad look. In his first Contender Series fight, you could be like, oh, well, he was fighting Marco Tullio, and Tullio is underrated and has proceeded to do well. But his second fight was just not a great fighter. He was minus 1,200 for a reason, and he poked him in the eye like 4 times or something ridiculous, and then finally got a finish, but it was a very anticlimactic fight, where it was like, okay, you just don't have a future in MMA. There is definitely a chance that Yusri is able to knock out Becoev because Becoev has such questionable defense on the feet. But realistically, Becoev can probably freeze him with the takedown threat, and then eventually either get the takedown or land one of the big overhands or something. So I'm going to say Becoev wins by first round TKO, but I would not be shocked now if Yusri was able to chin him. So under 2.5 you're feeling here? Yeah, very likely in my opinion. All right, so Stephanie Luciano versus Oliveira. Luciano, in my opinion, is actually a bit underrated because for a fighter at this weight class, she uses length effectively and actually has like reasonable technical kickboxing, let's say. She will move on the outside, she'll pressure when she is able to, she'll use a lot of kicks. Her punches are okay, I think her kicks are arguably better. She will throw flying knees and get a little bit flashy with it, but overall just a fairly sound striker. In her last fight, her takedown defense didn't really hold up, but the weird thing about that fight is I thought she pretty clearly got robbed against Sam Hughes, and Sam Hughes also isn't exactly a low-level opponent for this weight class, so even though she did lose, it is a good look in my opinion. Oliveira has been out for like 2 years. She's kind of just going to try to bully her way into the clinch, drag her opponent down, and look for a ground and pounder sub from there. She does have a lot of finishes. She is like a quote-unquote dangerous fighter, but in the UFC, when she's fighting higher level comp, it doesn't look that way. Oliveira has been out for a while and was never the greatest to begin with, so I do think this should be a pretty clear win for Luciano. She's just better virtually everywhere, and especially after her last loss, I think she'll be picking it up in the grappling department. I'm going to say Luciano by decision. I would not be shocked with like a flying knee finish either, though. Prepolec versus Dober. So Prepolec, of course, came back into the UFC with the short notice opportunity against Benoit Saint-Denis, which did not go his way to say the least, but he did show some good things in that fight. He did have a few good counters when BSD was trying to kick, and he did show that he's ridiculously durable. Like, he was just eating elbows from BSD for like 30 seconds straight and did not go down, which is maybe not the best statement regarding his skills, but definitely a statement regarding his durability. In terms of his offense when he's fighting a fighter closer to his level, he is very kick heavy. He will throw the back leg kick hard. He will throw lead kicks to the head as well. He is a southpaw, so basically just depending on whichever way you're standing, he is looking for head kicks. His striking is very stiff. He does like to pressure a lot and throw, but because of how stiff he is definitely open for counters. That being said, like, he is being a little bit underrated in my opinion, because none of his losses have like aged particularly poorly, and while he's not the highest level striker in the world, I mean, he's durable and he's going to throw hard and keep moving forwards. He doesn't really have quit in him, so that is what it is. Dober is also southpaw, so that's probably going to play into this matchup because he's probably going to be looking for the calf kicks. He is a power puncher. He's going to pressure forwards. He takes a lot of strikes. He'll take one to give one. More like he'll take 5 to give one, but you get what I mean. He has a habit of getting behind in fights and then coming back. The biggest problem recently is that he's gotten behind and then not be able to come back because he's just gotten finished, essentially. The Torres fight, I did not like for Dober, because it really showed that his defense has not evolved despite it needing to, and he's still very predictable with how he throws. Like, Dober has this like stutter step he does into his left hand to the body that John Silva was able to read to throw a spinning elbow, and other people have to some extent taken advantage of it as well. Like, when he got dropped against Matt Frevola, if it was off a very similar issue, Dober basically stutter stepped into his left hand, and then Frevola just countered it with the left hook overhand right. So Dober, the blueprint to beating him is there, and his durability is getting more questionable. Getting knocked out by Frevola is not the worst thing in the world, and he did also take some big shots against John Silva, all right. Just the way that Torres put him away so easily, and I know that Torres has a lot of power, but for it to basically be like the first clean shot that lands and put him away is not a good sign in my opinion. So I'm going to take a very controversial stance in this fight. I'm picking Prepolec by decision. I think that with Dober's ability to get hit, let's say, Prepolec is probably going to land something big at some point and potentially steal rounds. I also don't think Dober is going to have the ease in putting away Prepolec that people think he will, because Prepolec is so durable and not as defensively irresponsible as it might seem just from the BSD fight. So I am thinking Prepolec is going to take 2 rounds by big shots, maybe head kicks or something. I don't think he's going to be able to put away Dober with it, but I do think we will see Dober hurt in this fight. That being said, if Dober were to knock out Prepolec and Prepolec takes his first knockout loss because most of his comp has been low level, would not be the most shocking thing either. So don't take this as like Prepolec is a lock, but I am taking Prepolec by decision. Prepolec also rocked BSD. I do think it was a little bit overstated. When I watched it back, of the shots that DC was screaming that Prepolec hit BSD with, only one of them landed, and it wasn't the one that was like considered to be the most significant anyway. The second one, where Cormier was screaming that he's rocked, didn't even land if you actually like slow it down and watch it. So yeah, I don't think it was as good in terms of countering as it might seem based on how the commentators were screaming, but it does definitely show that he's willing to throw counters, and against someone with worse defense than Dober, it might land. You're actually the GOAT, man, much love. I'm not sure if that was to him or me, but if it was to me, thank you. Drew Dober by TKO, very possible. Dober's fighting, been a while. Yeah. Let's see. I don't think Becoev gets past Iron Turtle. Yeah, I don't think he does either. I expect Becoev to get fraud checked pretty quickly. Hopefully it's not in this one because I have bets on him, but probably in the next one. Okay, Barlow versus Jourdain Santos. So I'm actually going to start on the Jourdain Santos side for this one. So Jourdain Santos is a volume pressure striker. He'll throw a lot of jabs out. He's going to basically just try to break you while being well-rounded everywhere and never letting off the gas. If he has a strength, it's his cardio. He's not particularly dangerous anywhere, but he has no massive deficiencies. The biggest deficiency, in my opinion, is the fact that he does tend to drop his lead hand a lot when he's engaging. So even when he's just throwing the jabs, he'll very predictably bring it down. Not everyone punishes this, to be fair. Like, you'll see a lot of fighters do this, and the amount of times it's punished is maybe like 10%. But if a fighter really focuses on it, it's a read that you can make and put someone out. And the more you rely on pace and pressure, the more defensively responsible you have to be. Because if you're a power puncher, you just need one shot. So even if you're getting hit, you can turn the tides very quickly, and so on. Santos is going to need to be fairly perfect for 15 minutes, which is why I don't love that style here against Barlow. Barlow is a power puncher. His nickname is Left Hand to God. He's very focused on the left hand. He will just throw it as hard as he can repetitively, to the point he even throws himself off balance sometimes. He has a bit low volume, so if he falls behind on the scorecards, I could see people believing that he's going to basically just continue to go downhill and lose there. But he does have fight-ending power if he does land. We did see in his last fight that his defense is not spectacular, because he stands very straight up with his chin up, and he's so confident in his power that he doesn't defend himself after he throws, basically. I think in this fight, Santos may win the minutes because he's going to have the higher volume, but we're going to see the issue with being a volume striker and not having spectacular defense, because he can win for 14 minutes. If he gets hit by one big left hand from Barlow, he's out. I do actually think in this fight it'll be the right hand from Barlow, though. I am expecting this to be a lead hook finish, because I think Santos is going to get way too comfortable with the jab. Eventually Barlow will read that and just blast the lead hook as Santos comes in and catch him. So I'm going to say Barlow wins by second round TKO. Wasn't Jourdain gassed in his debut? He slowed down a little bit, but it wasn't horrific, and it was also because he was putting out an absurd level of volume. Prime figure or Merab? That's a very tough question, because we saw Figgy against Pantoja, and while it's not the exact same matchup, of course, somewhat similar styles in the amount of times they're going to shoot. And Figgy was able to do very well there. And he was able to, of course, drop Pantoja, be the first person to do so. I think I might actually lean Prime Figgy, because in his prime, he was a lot more willing to hunt for a finish and throw out a lot of volume and like blast elbows moving forwards and such. And I feel like he would find a moment against Merab. And Merab does not have Pantoja's shin. How much film do you assume that means how much film do you watch for these cards? It depends on the fight. Enough for me to make a reasonable prediction. And if I'm especially confused about a fight, I'll watch more. Santos moves like he's in molasses. Yeah, I get what you mean. Suzerkaev or Nickel. Interesting one. I'm going to lean Nickel, actually, just because of Suzerkaev's striking defense. But it's a tough one. Suzerkaev or Gautier. Gautier easily. As a Merab fan, I agree with this take. I was worried about Figgy making it to the belt until it was clear he was washed. Yeah, exactly. I'm about to start watching broadcasts in Spanish. Anthony Smith mouth breathing into the mic all season on Dana White's Contender Series has broken the camel's back. That's valid. All right, going on to Bruno Silva versus Hyun-Sung Park. So Bruno Silva is a very powerful striker, and that's about it. He sucks at everything, right? I don't know how he's still in the UFC. He's been able to ride on his power for a while. Like, there have been multiple opponents who are just beating him up and then just get defensively irresponsible and get chinned. That's basically what happened in the Jourdain fight. Jourdain was essentially perfect for 2 rounds and then just got too eager to find the finish, ate an uppercut, and got finished. So I have a very low opinion of Bruno Silva. I don't think he does anything well. He just wings shots and hopes one lands eventually. Park, on the other hand, while he does have defensive deficiencies at times, like when we're analyzing for the Tyra fight, if you guys remembered, I was saying that his tendency to like really misplace and drop his hand after throwing the jab would get him caught by Tyra, which did end up happening, which was nice to see. But other than that, and other than a few defensive holes that I don't love for him, Park is relatively technically sound. He's going to throw a lot of combos. He will focus on the jab a lot to open things up. Then he'll start going to the body. He'll shoot takedowns. He likes to shoot to the body lock, get to the back, and then finish the takedown from there. So very similar to Tyra, actually. It was interesting to see in that fight because they both had the grappling styles. I was curious what was going to happen if we saw more grappling out of them, but Tyra just dominated the fight, so that was what it was. I think this fight generally just comes down to Park is a decent fighter, Silva is not. So Bruno Silva's always going to have the chance to land something wild. And there's a lot of people being like, oh, Park gets hit and he gets dropped and Silva hits hard, so maybe he'll knock him out. And yeah, I mean, to some extent they're right. It is definitely a possibility. But Park is so much better as a fighter that I have to favor him like 80-20 here. If he doesn't get chinned by something wild in a 20% circumstance, he should absolutely dominate this fight. I do want to see Park get back on track because he is a very entertaining fighter. He's not afraid of getting dropped. He's always going to chase a finish. And I don't think I've seen him in a semi-boring fight at all. Like, not even a boring minute, in all honesty. Park got this? Yeah. I think I heard every punch Van gave Bruno Silva valid. Park is well-rounded. I think people are putting too much into the Tyra loss, but Tyra's absolutely it. Exactly, yeah. Tyra is very possibly a future champion. If not, he will be fighting for the title. So, yeah, losing to Tyra is by no means a bad look. Did you see Tyra versus Moreno? I got Moreno by jab TKO. Yeah, so I made the reel on Moreno versus Tyra. I'm pretty confident in Tyra there. Because Moreno's defense against wrestling is not good against Tyra's style in general. And Tyra, especially because it's a 3-round fight from what I know, Tyra should be able to just backpack for at least 2 rounds and get the decision. Like, I don't really see what Moreno's going to do against it. Park lays is fair about it. Tyra's going to have a good bit of size. I'm not sure if there's a continuation to that. But anyways, so on to Jourdain versus Grant. So Grant is the public's underdog of the week, right? Everyone's very confident on Grant having another one of those performances where he just, as a 40-year-old, somehow is able to get it done. Grant is a relatively technically sound but very basic striker. He's going to throw kicks from the outside. If he engages, it's usually with quick hook combos and then he disengages. So no real room to have massive defensive gaps, but also nothing very unpredictable. So you know exactly what his game plan is. Off his back, he is relatively defensively responsible. His takedowns are pretty much non-existent. He did shoot a bit earlier into his career, but he's not in a very long time. If he hurts you, he is very capable of finding a submission. He did find, I think, an inverted triangle against Sun Sao after hurting him. So while he does have the jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't expect it to be a factor unless you are rocked badly. Jourdain is a much more dynamic striker. He's going to throw a lot of jumping kicks, jumping knees, move around on the outside. He'll blitz in with usually left hook, right hand combos, I think, is what he usually does. He'll switch stances, so the way he blitzes changes a bit every time, but he really does like his blitz. The blitz, however, did get him caught against John Silva because he got a little bit too predictable with it, and John Silva was able to just plant and land with the left hook. So there is definitely some problems there. Jourdain is this fighter who you look at him and you're like, you could be very good, but you're just not putting it together. Kind of similar to what I was saying about Garcia when he fought Jared Gordon. Is if Garcia puts it together, he's probably going to win this, but you never know if he's going to. So I do have to lean towards Jourdain here, because he just has so much more diverse a skill set, and he has like a 10-year age gap here. So he should be evolving much more than Davey Grant is. I would hope that he's working on new stuff at TriStar, because he has such a solid gym base there. And I'm assuming that with how predictable Davey Grant is, the team is going to be able to put together a good game plan for Jourdain to be able to beat him. So I'm going to say Jourdain wins a decision here. You never know. Davey Grant has a way of pulling out these fights, but I do think that, especially when you see everyone having the same underdog for the same reasons, and it's a 40-year-old, it's usually not the best sign. I was gutted to hear it was 3 rounds. I think Breno was a decent chance to come back and maybe finish him late. And 5, yeah, it's possible for sure. 5 would definitely be better for Breno. What is Ottaba Gautier's ceiling? We'll have to see him against a decent fighter, because he hasn't fought a Don Can yet. How much of a chance does Chris Barnett have against Hamdi? I mean, better than the odds suggest, in my opinion, because Hamdi's just kind of terrible. I know that Chris Barnett has had a lot of injuries, which is probably why he's such a big underdog, but I don't know how anyone could bet on Hamdi after what we've seen. Grant is that old table that looks like it's going to break at any time, but outlast the new ones you bought. Valid. Bro had to sneak in the John Silva Clay is valid. Did you see Jourdain's little brother on Contender Series? Jourdain claims he's better than he is, and I'm curious if you think he's not lying or if he's just glazing his bro. No, Charles Jourdain's brother is definitely better than he is. He is so much snappier in and technically sound with how he throws things. I expect him to go a lot further than Charles Jourdain. Gautier versus Kelvin next. Yeah, 100%. That'd be good to watch. And drink some water and then we'll keep going. Alright, Frevola versus Nelson. Frevola is another one of those fighters who never has like a moment of a boring fight. He likes to throw wild. He really likes throwing the lead hook and then right overhand combo, like repetitively. He is going to adapt to it. So when he was fighting Dober, he threw the combo multiple times, but every time you could see he was getting a little bit closer, then he found Dober's timing and was able to knock him out. So there is definitely intelligence with how he throws it, even though he is throwing somewhat wild. He does have the wrestling in his back pocket. He doesn't always use it. Sometimes he definitely should use it more, in my opinion. If he gets it down, he'll work to progress position and then either just land massive ground and pound or look for a guillotine. Nelson is a more fundamentally technically sound striker. He's going to throw jabs and calf kicks on the outside. He's going to hold the high guard a lot. He kind of has 2 modes. He has the safe technical striker mode, where he's focusing on like those pitter-patter basic shots, and then he has just like the wild brawler mode, where he just throws nothing except overhands and just runs forwards. That kind of happened against Bill Algeo after he hurt him. I do think in this fight, there's 2 possible outcomes. There's, okay, Frevola is over-aggressive, and Nelson is able to just take advantage of that and pick at him until he either eventually finds the finish or wins a decision, or Frevola brutally finishes him. I'm going to lean towards Frevola brutally finishing him, because I think that Nelson, again, with that whole defensively sounds tactic of just circling around on the outside, is going to open himself up to being chinned, because you just have to be so perfect if you're not looking for a big counter to stop Frevola. And Nelson probably isn't going to look for the big counter unless it's clearly presented and he's able to go into his brawler mode. So I'm looking for Frevola to maybe shoot early and get some damage off, and then probably when Nelson gets up, just start throwing the left hook and right overhand until it finds and put Nelson out. I was very unimpressed with most of Nelson's fights, because against Garcia he looked terrible, but Garcia's good. So even if we want to take that out of the equation, even against Bill Algeo, like, he got very lucky in that fight, in my opinion. Because, where are we? Yeah, so Bill Algeo was winning, and then he got caught by one big shot, and then he was a little bit rocked, and then the ref stopped it, even though Algeo never stopped moving and fighting, which I really did not like. If the fight continued, Algeo definitely could have won, especially because Nelson does have the tendency to gas out whenever he starts going for a finish. Padilla, we've also seen now, is just not a good fighter. Blake Builder, also, I believe, not in the UFC anymore. So, like, his last well-aging performance is like a draw with Dooho Choi, and that's not even that good either. So, I am a little bit surprised so many people are picking Kyle Nelson. I do think Frevola gets it done here. People forget, man, Frevola's and Marauder very valid. I think Kyle Nelson is weak at 155. He lost to Jai 4 months after he died to Ilya. He needs to be at 145. That's very fair. Gaudier or Robocop. I'd lean Gaudier, I think, but I'm not confident. Hamzi got beaten by a body jab, yeah. Alright, Cody Gibson versus Aoriqileng. So this is another one of these matchups where both of these fighters love to find ways to lose. Cody Gibson is a pressure striker who will move forwards, then look to take the fight to the ground, has pretty good control. His submissions are okay. Sometimes they work, but usually against more aged comp. Against better fighter, he tends to just have like the, I'm not going to say wet blanket control because he does look to land ground and pound, but not the most eventful in terms of damage, let's say. On the feet, he's mainly throwing just like hooks and overhands moving forwards, but it's not like he's loading up on them terribly, so he's not that crazy open. Aoriqileng is the exact opposite. He's a very low volume striker. He's going to wait for you to come in and then try to counter you. Because he's so low volume, he can fall behind very easily. He also, in my opinion, does not have the one-punch knockout power that people really thought he did. His takedown defense has looked better in recent years, even though his like career stat is not great, and being able to survive against Royal Rosas is a decent look, to say the least. I do think in this fight, though, you have to favor Gibson just doing more, because Aoriqileng could find a big counter and rock him potentially or put him out, but if he doesn't, which I don't think is the largest likelihood here, Gibson's just going to be throwing and doing stuff, so he's just going to win a decision off of purely doing more, even if no one really has any meaningful damage this fight. Watching RDR versus GM3 right now, ew. Yeah, it's not a good showing. I'm weirdly very confident in Gibson. Yeah, I know why you're saying so. Do you think Juseng Yu is UFC level? Yeah, I do think he is. I think he just needs some improvements. Canadian Guram versus lightweight Yuri. Alright. Going on to Fiorot versus Jasmine. So this is a very interesting matchup in my opinion. So when this was first announced, my initial thought is like, okay, Fiorot's just going to stuff the takedowns and kill her. But then when I started looking a bit closer, this fight is more interesting than it seemed. So starting with Jasmine, her takedowns are wildly good, for this division especially. I thought against Andrade, she might have some problems because of Andrade's physicality, but seeing her just be able to ragdoll Andrade that easily was definitely impressive, especially when Aaron failed several takedowns before being able to get her down and sub her. So definitely a good look from Jasmine. Jasmine's last loss was the Tracy Cortez fight when she just wasn't able to establish anything with the grappling and just got outstruck. But it does seem like even her striking has improved since. She did get the knockdown against Priscilla Cachoeira, and even though Priscilla is somewhat hittable, to be fair, like striking with the striker and finding that success was definitely something that I did want to see out of her. All in the feet, she's going to keep things relatively basic. She knows it's not her domain, so she's not going to go for anything crazy. She'll stick with like basic 1-2s, especially if you overextend into the pocket and like you're really focused on stuffing the shot, then she will look to blast you and drop you. With the wrestling, she's just shooting regular double legs, going to get you down. She uses a lot more ground and pound than someone like Blanchfield, which definitely helps open up the subs very quickly, which is why she's been finishing people much more easily than Blanchfield has, in my opinion. On the other hand, with Fiorot, up until her last fight, before her last fight, she was a very standard traditional like Muay Thai striker, and that she was just going to move forwards, stuff takedowns, and then just look to put volume on you. She doesn't really reflexively do anything, so even if you whiff a shot against her, she's probably not going to punish, but on the front foot, she is very technically sound, solid jab, solid 1-2, all that stuff. She did make it relatively close against Rose, which wasn't the best look, but then she also made it close against Valentina, and that was like, okay, even though I did have Valentina winning, I expected Valentina to win a bit more dominantly, so there were definitely some good things out of Fiorot. The weird thing in the Valentina fight is Fiorot turned into more of a wrestler, where she was holding Valentina against the fence a lot of the time and just looking to land the little knees and such. So I don't know if that is a good or a bad thing, because you could say on one hand, well, she had to do that because Valentina was outstriking her, which isn't good, but on the other hand, at least she showed that she has a more well-rounded skill set. I'm going to very mildly lean Fiorot in this fight. I think that she's just going to be more physical than Jasmine's last opponents and be able to stuff the takedowns and then just have the slightly more technical striking and get it done by a very close decision, which people complain about. I would not be shocked, though, if Jasmine was able to find a way to win this. I don't think Jasmine's going to be able to finish her like she was her previous opponents, but I do think that there definitely is a world in which she gets like 2 takedowns and is able to ride out the fight like that, or even has some success on the feet, maybe hurts Fiorot briefly because she's too worried about the takedown. So Fiorot by decision, but very close fight, and just one that's going to be interesting, in my opinion. Fiorot might just bully her with size. Possible, yes, but it's her first opponent that is basically the same size as her. Fiorot's big, but I don't think that she's that much bigger than Jasmine. No, yeah, she's not. Fiorot made it close against Valentina by just wet blanketing. Yeah, exactly. I want to pick Manon, but I can see Jasmine outstriking her. Manon hasn't been aggressive for a long time, and she's been waiting too much. It's possible. I would say if Jasmine outstrikes her, it's probably going to be because of the wrestling threat, though. I don't think that Jasmine's going to be able to just technically outstrike her. Protez is going to fold Leon. Leon going to fight on the back foot and has no movement that's perfect for Protez. Yeah, most likely, realistically. Leon beats Protez, hot take. I think Leon is 100% capable of beating Protez. I just don't think he's going to fight in the way that he needs to do so. All right, Chito Vera versus Aiemann Zahabi. So we've seen the story with how Chito Vera fights. Everyone knows at this point. He's going to do absolutely nothing except throw kicks from a distance, without even putting too much power into them. And then he'll just hope that a big shot opens up, and then he'll take it. That shot sometimes is actually a submission. He had the very interesting standing arm triangle attempt. I forget who it was against, but I think a lot of you guys have probably seen the clip. So his offense is very dangerous when he uses it. He just has zero urgency. 5-round fights favor him because he has more time to find the big shot, even if he falls behind on the scorecards in the early rounds. But his lack of urgency is just so painful because, especially with his chin, he could be throwing heavy and going forwards and eating counters, and he'd still be perfectly fine. On the other hand, Zahabi is a lot more technically, I don't want to say proficient. He's more, let's say he's more generic in how he fights, I guess, and that's not necessarily a bad thing here. He's going to fight like a boxer. He does throw some kicks, but not too many. He's mainly like using Philly shell, sometimes high guard. He's just going to walk in with a jab. He stays hunched over so that he's a smaller target. Just jab, 1-2, very basic boxing combo is going to walk you down and do his thing. Nothing that like screams wildly talented, but he doesn't leave many defensive issues open. And I mean, it's so simple that it works, if that makes any sense. Of course, he has Firas Zahabi and such in his corner, which is definitely a benefit when game planning. We saw it against Aldo, where they definitely wanted to break Aldo over the fight and didn't worry about winning the first round. One thing that everyone seems to collectively forget about the Aldo fight, which I do want to point out very clearly, is that Aldo missed weight by an entire weight class. So, regardless of if you think Aldo won, Zahabi won, whatever, Zahabi was at a massive disadvantage in that fight. So I do think it was a good showing for him. And I do think that Aldo still looked good, generally speaking. So I do think that overall, the fact that Zahabi was able to outbox him for most of rounds 2 and 3 is a good sign for him. You definitely have to pick Zahabi to win this fight, in my opinion, because Vera, unless he is able to show that he's going to have a lot more urgency, can never really be picked to beat a decent opponent, especially one who's defensively responsible. Zahabi has nearly 70% striking defense. In the lower weight classes, I don't think I've ever seen that before. That means that Chito's going to have a much harder time finding that big shot. He doesn't like set it up like Aldo will, and he's not going to like explode forwards like that. He's just going to wait, and Zahabi's not going to give him those openings to just exploit. The Zahabi should win a decision here, and I think it may be more dominant than people expect. I'm going to say a 30-27 decision here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he even rocked Vera at one point. I've seen the clip of Zahabi getting soccer kicked by Aldo a million times, Vera. To me, Vera has to be one of the most fraudulent top contenders in the last couple of years. Yeah, that's valid. Is Jan going to get steamrolled again? Yes, very likely. Is it fair to say that Chito is a lethal heavy bag? Yes, that is a very accurate description. Chito is such a disappointment. He could have been so much better. I don't get why he'll just stand there and do nothing. Yeah, I don't understand him either. Does Vera actually have that good of a chin? I feel like he just covers up a ton. I mean, after seeing him eat like the knee from O'Malley and a few big other shots in that fight, I definitely think he has a solid chin. But I do get what you're saying. I got Zahabi via having a brain and actually wanting to win. Yeah, valid. How does you all do against Imavov, Kaio, Fluffy, and RDR? I think he beats most of them. Imavov and Kaio are his hardest matchups. I think he could beat Kaio. I think Imavov is the only one I might pick against him. I forgot about that. Yeah, everyone forgets about it, and even I forgot about it until I was watching the fight again. Jan said he only threw his left hand like 4 times because he was injured or something. Do you think they'll play a factor in the rematch against Rob? I mean, fighters are always going to cope after a loss, right? So a lot of them are going, like, if Jan had won that fight, you would have never heard anything about him being injured. So, especially knowing that Marab goes into most fights injured as well, I'm not going to really take anything meaningful from that. I think that Jan also, again, has not improved enough to face a bad matchup for him like Marab. So I just haven't seen anything that would make me think that he's going to do any better. I think Vera has overrated defense. People just think it's good because he doesn't get hurt a lot because he has an iron chin. Fair. I mean, your even odds fights on this card, very interesting. Yes, that is true. Alright, so Kevin Holland loves to throw fights, as we all know. But so Kevin Holland is a rangy, both striker and grappler, we'll say. He's going to throw the 1-2 at long distance, but the way he throws it, he kind of like slings it, so he'll end up coming in if he misses, and then sometimes can end up in the clinch and such. In the clinch, he is still good, to be fair. He will throw a lot of knees. The problem with how Kevin Holland strikes, and just how he even guards in general, is that his boxing defense sucks. And we did see it in the last fight, where he got dropped by D-Rod, which was one of the more insane upsets, just in the sense that I feel like Holland definitely should have been able to win that fight, but that is what it is. If you shoot on Holland, he's going to look for the darce usually, or he will go to his back without many complaints. He will strike off of his back, we've seen that all many times, but if you keep him there, he will sometimes just decide not to get back to the feet and just lose the fight that way. He is very dangerous, but of course very unpredictable, and we never know how badly he wants to win or not. The fact that he managed to throw the finish against D-Rod in round 3 is impressive, because the ref was looking for an excuse to stop that. You could tell if D-Rod got hit like one more time, he was just going to step in. But Holland decided he needed to go for a jump knee and gotten taken down, so okay. Malott is... I have some controversial thoughts on Malott, in the sense that I don't think he's nearly as talented as most people think. When I watch him fight, he is very slow. Like, his 1-2 combos are very slow, even his hooks are pretty slow, and when you look at when he's moving defensively, his movements are so slow as well. Like, I'm just going to say slow a million times, but everything he does looks like it's just crawling. In terms of technique, though, he is very proficient. He's much more sound in the boxing than Kevin Holland is, right? So, the finish against Radke, the reason why he got that finish is because in the boxing exchange they had in the center, Malott had his hand up guarding right after he threw, like you should, but very few fighters do. So he blocked Radke's hook. Then he threw his own hook, and Radke dropped his hand, like most fighters do, and got hit because of that and got put out. So I understand why Malott was the Team Alpha head striking coach, or whatever he was. But the fact that he's not as, say, like fast twitch oriented definitely can have his downsides here. Because of that, I, unfortunately, have to very mildly lean towards Holland. Because I think that if you're slow against Holland, he is going to have the opportunity to catch you. And especially with how Malott was looking on the back foot with his defense, even against Radke, I don't love it here, with Holland just like slinging 1-2s moving forwards, or maybe getting into the clinch and blasting knees and stuff like that. Malott could definitely catch and put out Holland. I would not be surprised at all. But I do think that Holland, especially off his loss, being a bit more motivated, knowing that he needs to prove a point, is probably going to be aggressive, use his speed, and drop Malott, maybe finish him with the darce. How the hell did Holland fight at middleweight? Just by not cutting weight, basically. I think Kevin Holland's chin is not the same anymore. He's not very durable anymore. That is very possible. I'm not positive if he'll need the durability in this fight, though. Kevin fought like he put the wrong inputs in a quick time event. Fair. Can you do a Holland-Malott speed comparison vid? Unfortunately, probably not at this point in the week, but it is extreme, I will tell you that. Malott losing to Magny in the fashion he did tells me all about his skill ceiling, in my opinion. Yeah, Malott's ceiling is not that high. He's, again, as we were saying, technically proficient, but in terms of maybe heart or just natural explosive talents, yeah, not quite there. Well, I don't think Malott is going to go very far. I think he gets past Holland. Holland is too passive and not aggressive enough. He'll probably lose a decision, in my opinion. That's a fair take, but I do think that especially after losses, we see Holland come out more aggressive. So I do expect him to be more aggressive than he was last fight here. People forget, man, Kevin Holland took the champ to a split decision. How that happened, I still don't understand. But yeah, Holland losses usually come in twos, by the way. Yeah, I mean, could be a bad sign for him, but we'll see. It's so hard to pick Holland. He's already coping about this fight, saying he doesn't care. Yeah, I mean, I hate picking Holland. I hate the fact that I have to lean towards him here. Like, I was kind of looking for an excuse to pick Malott. I would really like to pick Malott, but I have to lean Holland. Merab or Umar in a rematch, and how? Merab is going to finish Umar if they rematch. Probably like 4th round TKO. I think Holland is tremendously more dangerous. Is tremendously more dangerous than Malott. I could somewhat agree there. I think Malott's dangerous in the fact that he can hit people with counters they don't see coming. But I would say that in terms of just the ability to hurt you from anywhere, yeah, Holland is more dangerous. You see, Holland thought he was fighting Jake Matthews until fight week. Kevin Holland things, but no, I did not see that. Thank you for telling me. Why do you think Merab will finish Umar? Umar is just like, I don't want to say he's a fraud because he still will beat a lot of guys, right? But he doesn't have a skill set that would make him be able to be champion, in my opinion. Because this whole, like, a few of the Dagestanis have been trying this recently, with the whole, like, front leg kicks and such to set up their takedowns. I don't love it because I don't feel like it meshes together that well. I even honestly feel like a karate stance would be better than what they're doing there. So with that, along with the fact that, first of all, he's just always going to have bad cardio. It's the same thing with like Connor, right? Some fighters are always going to have bad cardio. Umar's always going to have bad cardio. Even in a domination win against Begzot, he gassed. So I don't see that changing. Merab is getting better, especially in the striking, and Merab was putting it on Umar very badly in round 4. So if that were to happen again, with Merab's willingness to throw at power now, and potentially added power in terms of his like kinetic chain as well, I do think he will hurt and finish Umar. Kevin gonna chin him, then lose to Alex Morano? Very possible. By the way, thoughts on Joel Alvarez's ceiling? That fight was not what I wanted to see out of Alvarez, and yes, he should have had the TKO in round 1, that was BS, but I didn't love how he looked. He was getting hit, which was my concern because he's always had like a bit of a defensive issue with his tall man defense. So if you guys remember what I was saying about that fight, that maybe it would look better at welterweight, we'll have to see. It did not look better at welterweight. So maybe it's just the short notice that was the issue, but as if we're judging based off that performance, I don't love him to get that far at welterweight, unfortunately. Kevin was definitely lying about that. He does cope stuff all the time. That's possible, yeah. I think Merab could have finished Umar if he'd gone for it in the 4th round. Yeah, and I do think he will now. I think the way to beat Merab is to be a specialist, having knockout power, very high BJJ game. Yeah, I do think that the way to beat Merab is to be a knockout artist, for sure. What was your prediction for RDR versus Whitaker? I had Whitaker TKO. After seeing Joel, I think Prates, Morales, and Jack would called him. Yeah, probably. Seriously scared about Luque's health after that. So many unanswered ground strikes. Yeah, Luque has to retire. He cannot fight UFC comp anymore, in my opinion. Sandhagen with O'Malley's power would be a nightmare matchup. Yeah, exactly. It's what I was saying, where it's like, if Sandhagen had power in his hands, he would definitely beat Merab, but probably not with what he has. Brady versus Morales early prediction. I have to lean Brady. Alright, so on to the main event. So I will tell you guys something outright, and then you can form your opinion based off of that, right? I've always thought RDR sucked. And like, I don't know if anything can change my mind about that. His striking, and his striking defense specifically, are so atrocious, I can never pick him to win a fight. Like, he's the most chinnable guy of all time. He will leave his chin straight in the air, throw like a wild calf kick with zero setup, stumble, put his hands down, and stand there for like 2 seconds before recovering. Like, RDR does the most wild stuff I've seen of all time, and somehow has not gotten chinned for it so far. Obviously, his grappling is good, right? If he gets you to the ground, he is good there. But its wrestling itself is not spectacular. Like, he was able to get down GM3, sure, but GM3 is always okay going to his back and then recovering from there. Against, like, the other opponents, like, he went, like, I think 2 for 15 with takedowns against Whittaker. Whittaker does have solid takedown defense, to be fair, but it was not the best look. RDR does make things work, of course, using his size to just blast the knees in the pocket and such, pushing you up against the fence and just wearing on you slowly throughout the fight. So in terms of his fight IQ, I can respect RDR a bit. In terms of his skill set, I just can't. Allen, of course, is the opposite, right? Allen is very talented and finds ways to lose every fight that he should win. He has the second fastest shot at this weight class after Chimaev. It may actually be the fastest. I do need to compare the two. I'm not positive, but his takedown, his double leg shot is very fast. His 1-2 is also very solid, and he has a lot of power in it. He has the ability to chin people with his hand and so on. I am going to pick Allen in this fight. I think that he can TKO de Ridder. I think that as long as Allen doesn't just decide he's going to start shooting for no reason, he has the very easy path to just blast the 1-2 over and over until it flatlines de Ridder. That being said, knowing Allen, he will probably drop de Ridder, jump into his guard, and then get subbed instead of just keeping punching. So, I'm going to say Allen by TKO. Will I be surprised at all if de Ridder subs him? No. I want to pick Brendan Allen so bad. RDR is very beatable, and Brendan Allen was beating Imavov in the clinch. Yes, I 100% get what you mean there. Do you trust Brendan Allen fight IQ? I do not. Watching Luque fight is like when I watch Glenn get beat to death in The Walking Dead. Just don't trust Allen's IQ, let alone fight IQ. Fair. RDR does dumb things and wins. Allen does dumb things and loses. Fair. Allen via being boring. I don't think Allen is going to win in a boring way here if he wins. I think if he wins, he chins him. Who's saltier, Allen or Pfeiffer? I would say Pfeiffer, probably. RDR has an underrated guard game. Yeah, RDR is great in the grappling in general. I agree with you there. RDR is just lazy, I feel, and tries to gets tired from being so lazy with his strikes. What is next for Bo Nickel? I mean, Bo Nickel is against Vera, right? I think he's booked against Adolfo Vera. RDR body knee round 4, I pray. Fair enough. Unk is going to beat Allen in a slow off, to be honest. Possible. Song or Umar? Good question. I would have to tape study that. I'm not sure. I don't have any initial lean. Allen by KO or RDR by sub, I think is a good bet. It's definitely a reasonable one, yeah. My only concern is RDR takes it to a decision for that bet, but if it's a decent value bet, then it's not bad. Oracle mandatory promo into the Discord. What are your thoughts on Unk? What are Unk's thoughts on you picking Allen? Good point. I do need to promo the Discord. If you guys are betting this week, I completely butchered the intro to that, but if you guys are betting this week and are not on the service already, although I think a lot of you guys here are already, so I do think I'm talking to very few people remaining who aren't, but if you are not, then we are up a ridiculous amount in the last 4 weeks or so. We did hit a plus 25,000 a few weeks ago. We have algorithms that we use to bet. I put my bets in there as well, and I put all my thoughts and reads whenever anyone asks. So the link is in the description here if you want to sign up. Everyone in the Discord is amazing. We're creating a very strong betting community there, so hope to see you guys there. No offense, why is your voice so monotone? It's just how I voice things. I mean, I can show more emotion, but especially when I'm doing analysis, I tend to go very monotone. I think the most emotion I've ever shown was my story after Yuri knocked out Roundtree. And, oh, you asked, what are Unk's thoughts on you picking Allen? He's not surprised, and he understands my logic, but he still hates me for it. But you expected that, I'm sure. Who do you think will become Bantamweight champ after Merab? We'll just have to see who's in the picture at that time. It's very hard to say. Allen has 1k on the promotion. Yeah, it's because he usually goes for the club and sub, but I still think he's very capable of getting the KO if he doesn't go for the sub. On short notice, I think Allen won't be able to do 5. He's just too stupid to. It's a fair take. It says Allen is representing Canada. That, you are correct. It says that. Okay. Allen could have someone on 1 HP, then die for a leg and get subbed. Truly one of the fighters of all time. Yes, I agree. Don't listen to him, Oracle. Your voice is perfect. I appreciate it. And do you think Talbot could be the KO artist to beat Merab? It's possible, but it's way too early to say. If he steamrolls Cejudo, then we might need to start talking about it. But he will need to steamroll Cejudo for that. Although, what was the plus 25,000? Let me find what the bet was. I need to be saving this in more convenient places. I think it's still in the Discord. I'll find it there. Okay, it was Pfeiffer by finish, Basharat by unanimous decision, Hardy minus 3.5. Ankalaev versus Pereira does not start round 4, Rahamai by finish, and Zalal by submission. So had to get a lot of underdog reads there to make that one work. But yeah, it's the second time in a few months I've hit one of those. So trying to get very consistent with the long odds bets. I've tail docked on plus 700 reads 2 weekends in a row and hit. Thanks for saying it, yeah. Henry or Payton. I have to lean Talbot, but Talbot really has to fix the striking defense. Aljo versus Umar and also Merab. If Merab doesn't exist, who would be champ? Aljo versus Umar, I think I have to favor Umar narrowly for just having the better wrestling, but narrowly, I wouldn't be shocked if Aljo won. If Merab didn't exist, who would be champ? Honestly, I'm not sure who would win between O'Malley and Sandhagen. I used to think it would be an easy win for Sandhagen, but I'm not sure because of the power discrepancy now. Allen would have beaten Fluffy and Imavov, but it's that classic fight IQ I can't trust. RDR, though, is just a clutch machine. Yeah, exactly. I think Allen will be a problem early. I don't know how he'll handle the knees. I can see Allen fading in the later rounds, especially from the grappling, and maybe RDR can find a TKO. Yeah, it's very possible. Good bet. Thank you. Kyle called out Rob. Who do you think wins? Kyle should win that. Rob is, unfortunately, just at the tail end of his career. I don't think he's beating a high-level opponent anymore. Hell yeah, I had a feeling Zalal sub at plus 500 was way too good a price tag to pass up on. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why it was that high. I think it's going to be a crossroads thing for Henry since his last fight and he has to give it his all. Or since his last fight and he takes some damage and he just accepts the loss and wilts. I think Henry has too big an ego to just accept the loss and wilt, but I do think that his age could definitely catch up to him here. I think O'Malley's power is overrated, to be honest. I think it's a little overrated, but at the same time, he has much more than Sandhagen. Not Jan at bantamweight. No, I don't think Jan would beat O'Malley or Sandhagen rematches, to be honest. How far would Ellen go with above average fight IQ? If Ellen had above average fight IQ, he unironically might be champ right now. Bro, you think O'Malley would beat Umar? I do not, but I think that O'Malley, if he stays on the path he's on, could. But based on what we've seen, I don't think he will. He would right now. Piotr Jan would be the champ. Ubam O'Malley. Piotr Jan's bag is deeper than Nina's. Oh god. Pound for pound, who wins, Merab or Khabib? I would say probably Merab. I think that his striking is significantly better and his distance management is significantly better. What can Corey do to win a Jan rematch? The biggest problem for Corey is he needs to go into fights with the mentality that he needs to knock out his opponent. Not that he necessarily will, even if he goes in with that mentality, but he needs to at least think that way so he can do more damage. I do think generally, though, he's evolved more than Jan has. I think he would mix in a lot more wrestling, and I think that he would confuse Jan and make his read slower to the point he's able to pick up at least 3 rounds. Van versus Pantoja early predictions. I'm really not sure on that one yet, honestly. Allen and Max Griffin sharing a split decision with Chris Curtis is just like, Brother Hill, I don't like it. Yeah, I get what you mean. O'Malley has good power for bantamweight, but not as good as Songs or Figgies. Definitely not as good as Figgies. Song, I get what you're saying. Maybe not as good as Song either. It's hard to say. MMA gods knew that if Alan had a good fight IQ, he'd be so broken that they nerfed him. Valid. What have you seen from Alan to make you so high on him? I think he beats RDR too, but I don't think Alan's that great either. I mean, skill for skill, there's just nothing Alan doesn't have. I mean, he has fast and powerful striking. His defense sometimes leaves a little to be desired, but it's not terrible. His wrestling is spectacular. It's in like the top 2, maybe top 3 in the weight class. His grappling is great. His cardio, maybe a little could be better also, but it also is just sometimes cardio looks worse than it is because of the stupid decisions he makes. He puts himself on his back and then has to figure out how to get up and stuff, and then like, okay, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of energy there. I can still see Alan winning. I almost want to pick him. Valid. What's up, article? Hey, Harls. Do you think RDR's jab will be as potent as it was against Rob here against Alan? I don't think so, because I think Alan will be a lot more willing to engage. The way Alan can mix takedowns and strikes is really good, in my opinion. His BJJ is top tier, but dude has cotton candy for brains. Yes, very valid. Oracle, if you tried reaching out to Alan, you might unironically have dude beating Chimaev. I could try reaching out to him. That's a good point. I don't know if I could get a conversation with him. Fighters love to not follow game plans. I don't know what the deal is. RDR or Fluffy? I was gonna pick Fluffy if that fight happened. If Petr Yan had knockout power, would he be the bantamweight GOAT? If he had like Song Yadong knockout power and his skill set, very possible. But even then, I think he might struggle with Merab. Because his style is so bad against Merab, it's not just a power thing. So I still think Merab might beat him, but he would definitely knock out everyone else. Do you think O'Malley needs a coaching change? 100%. Tim Welsh is not what I've liked from what I've seen. How bad would Imavov do RDR on the feet? You would see a 30-second fight. If Imavov fights RDR, Imavov's going to chin him instantly. Could RDR have success with his guard game against Hamzat like Burns did? It's possible. I just don't think that Hamzat would necessarily wrestle like that against RDR. I think that he would look to mainly strike, and then if he had to wrestle, he would only do it if he could get back control or such instantly. He wouldn't play into the guard. I believe in Alan. I'd believe in Alan if he was smarter, but he's too silly and his fighting instincts aren't the greatest. Yeah, I get what you mean. Great David Martinez. Oh, great David Martinez pick versus font. You had me looking like Brendan Allen. Thank you. Who's win between Fluffy and Allen? I don't know if you're asking who would win or who did win, but Fluffy won when they fought. Is Merab pound for pound the best fighter of all time? No, I don't necessarily think so. I do think that he's not too far off, but I do think that he has his grappling control is not spectacular usually. I do think that needs work. And I do think on the feet he does have some deficiencies. We saw Corey Sandhagen going to the left hook a lot and having success with that. That's always an issue that Merab has had and never fixed. Imagine Petr Yan with Godin style levels of power, one glancing hook and Merab is wide-eyed. I'm confused who that is, but fair. I think another problem with Alan is he's very overconfident. Every interview he can't understand. He can understand. I assume you mean he can't understand how anyone has success and why he isn't the champ already. To be fair, fighters do need to be a bit arrogant, but yeah, I do get what you mean. He definitely should be like, okay, I need to improve. How would DDP versus Alan go? It's just too big of a fight IQ difference. So even if Alan had a little bit of success early, which is definitely possible, DDP would adapt and finish him. I used to think Rob Font had a bad chin, but David Martinez fight made me realize he's just too hittable, gets hit clean bad randomly. Yeah, he's always been very hittable on the front foot. Rob or John? I think John has a solid chance, but it might be like an issue like the Jan fight, where John is just too reliant on getting reads, and Merab just banks rounds that way. But I do think especially the whole left hook issue, John is like the perfect fighter to exploit that, so I could see John putting Merab down with the left hook. Goat plus Poeton equals Goat. Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, I mean, if he had Alex power, that would definitely help him, to say the least. Who would win between Fluffy and Ellen now? I had a stroke writing that last message, you're good. I still would have to pick Fluffy just because the better fight IQ. I think generally speaking, Ellen is more talented, but Fluffy fight IQ makes up for the gap in talent. What are the chances that my boy Moreno gets club and subbed by Tyra? I'm gonna cry if that happens. There's definitely a chance. I think it probably goes to decision, but I'd say maybe there's like a 20 to 30% chance of a Tyra finish. Pound for pound number 1 of all time is featherweight goat Volk. A 5'11 Volk would break Islam in half. Casuals will say, oh, he lost to Islam, he can't be higher on the GOAT list. In terms of skill, I don't think Volk is number 1, especially because he's had certain very exploitable defenses with how he backs up and like how he's vulnerable in the pocket. Like he always lifts his chin after like throwing a jab and stuff like that. So Volk has some fundamental problems, but he is definitely, I mean, a very high-level fighter. Unama Garcia pick, that's a tough one. I think Garcia chins him. I've not been impressed with Unama at all. Is there any tendency that Ellen has that's incorrect? An example, him leaving his hands down, or does he just randomly do dumb stuff in the moment? It's mainly he does dumb stuff in the moment. Like, does his boxing have some technical gaps? Yeah, for sure. But there's nothing crazy he does that's incorrect. It's mainly just him being stupid. Garcia round 1 KO, by the way. Unama's bad. Yeah, I agree with that. Who would win between Robocop and Joe Pyfer? Joe Pyfer, probably. I saw your Instagram post today. I could see Islam feint to takedown to lower JDM's guard, land a head kick. Also, how could JDM fix this hole? Yes, I can 100% see that as well. JDM needs to be very careful about when he drops his hands. So, if you want to drop it when Islam is doing his traditional takedown setups, so for example, like, oh, if you're going to throw 1-2 and Islam ducks under, and then like, okay, you drop your hands instead of guarding and preparing for a longer exchange, yeah, I could get something like that. But if you're just on the outside and Islam is entering, you can't just drop your hands. Who's a better boxer, Moreno or Song? Okay, Prime Moreno was a much better boxer. Currently, probably Song. After watching Figgy's last performance, Figgy definitely doesn't have it anymore. In my opinion, he looks slow, way too patient, and not as intense as before. Yeah, Figgy has not had it for a while, as much as I love him. Who is the most defensively sound fighter you could think of right now? Unironically, maybe Zahabi. Like, I have not seen a 70% striking defense in the lower weight classes ever, other than him. Joined late, last 3 picks, please. Where are we? I'll give you last 4. Very barely leading, Fiorot decision, Zahabi decision, Holland, let's say TKO, and Allen TKO. On the topic of Volk, who do you think won the second max fight? I thought Volk 3 through 5, but all 3 of 3 through 5 were close rounds, especially round 3 and 4. Okay, so the Volk max fight showed that the scoring criteria sucks, in my opinion. No, not the scoring criteria sucks. The scoring style, let's say, sucks. Because Max very clearly won rounds 1 and 2. Round 3 was close. Volk edged rounds 4 and 5. So, by how we score, even though Holloway was much more dominant in the fight, it all depends on who you gave round 3. And I thought round 3 was very close, and even though I scored it for Holloway live, and to be honest, I have not watched that fight back in a long time, I 100% understand the argument to people who scored it for Volk. So, I'm not going to say that, like, Volk winning that was a robbery, as many people think it was. He does use his lead shoulder to guard his chin after exiting the pocket, getting clubbed with an overhand on the temple. Power punchers like Topuria, Lopez, and Mendes isn't something. Yeah, I mean, he really needed to adapt his pocket boxing, in my opinion, but it is what it is. Not sure if it was bait, but I saw that Bryce is stepping in to fight Wellmaker. Even if it's fake, who would win? I'd have a hard time picking Wellmaker at this point, even though I don't have the highest opinion of Bryce in terms of his skills. But I'd have to like rewatch Bryce's defensive tendencies and see if like there's something massive that would let Wellmaker chin him. I mean, Allen defense is just very lackluster to me. His footwork is very exploitable, and his lack of head movement is very problematic. I'm not saying it's spectacular, but it's good enough. Who did you pick between Jones and Gone? Who did I pick between Jones and Gone? I probably picked Jones. I don't actually remember, but I don't think I would have picked Gone, so I'm pretty sure I picked Jones. Flyweight think he was the man, the way he had Joseph Benavidez screaming as well. Yeah, I agree. How do you think Holloway would fare against Merab at 145? Holloway would have a good chance because he is able to defend a lot of takedowns that the fighters that Merab has fought are not able to, and he's going to be able to keep up in the cardio. So I might lean Holloway. I'm 200 pounds, but look 180 at 5'5". Do I have power in my hands? I mean, I'd hope so, I guess. I don't know. I want to see Tyra versus Van for the belt one day. Who do you think who wins? I don't know who wins that. This is one of those matchups I would want to look into thoroughly before I made a prediction. Do you think Ellen has too much power and accuracy, or do you not believe in RDR chin because Ellen getting a TKO in general is not likely situation? RDR, while not granite, can take Ellen shots, in my opinion. I don't think RDR is taking Ellen shots. If Ellen lands, I think it's over. Or at least he'll get dropped, and then who knows, like maybe Ellen goes into his guard and gets subbed. But I do think that if Ellen lands, he will hurt RDR badly. I do think that he has enough power to do so. Honestly, thought 4 was closer than 3, in my opinion. One of, if not the closest fights ever. I thought 3 was closer than 4, but to be fair, it's been a long time since I watched it, so you could be right. I don't know. What scoring system should we adopt instead? So some people have talked about this before, but a 10-9 round should be a round in which someone wins semi-clearly, but it's not like a meaningful advantage. 10-10 round should be when it's too close to score, because we should have 10-10 rounds, because there are a lot of rounds that like you shouldn't be forced to coin flip a winner, essentially. Then we should have a 10-8 be like, okay, if you very clearly win a round, like again, if you drop someone, if you relatively dominate the round, but not enough for a current 10-8 criteria, that should be a 10-8. Then a 10-7 should be a current 10-8 criteria. And that way, you reward people for having more dominant rounds, and it fixes a lot of the issues we have. Bryce would probably drown him. Yeah, it's very possible. Max or Khabib? I thought Max was a very bad matchup for Khabib. He got that diabetic crack strength fair. For middleweight, Ellen striking is average, but middleweight seems to have less than average striking compared to all the other weight classes. Yeah, I mean, we can only compare it to middleweight. For middleweight, Ellen has reasonable striking. But we could say that for like other weight classes, yeah, it's not great. I think low-key Max could have beaten both Islam and Khabib. What do you think? Yeah, I agree. RDR getting dropped that bad by Pillow Hand Whitaker solidifies that? Yeah. For Whitaker to be hurt and then almost sleep RDR is interesting. Yeah. Very. Holloway has underrated get-ups, highest level footwork, and cardio amongst every single one of his opponents except the Volk, and for I assume you mean Volk or Islam. Yes, he does have very underrated get-ups. I want more draws, yeah, exactly. Tulio or Sursakayev? Tulio. Sursakayev's striking defense is abysmal. When has Ellen ever shown enough power to finish someone? I agree, he has pop and can hurt, but he has never finished anyone with his boxing respectfully. RDR can at least survive at the worst to me. I mean, let's see. See if I'm not thinking of something. So we're looking at a lot of knockdowns here. Drops and solves Jeffrey on Contender Series. Like, yeah, you could say it's a nobody, but he gets a knockdown, right? A few fights later, drops Kyle Dawkins. Gets finished by Strickland, that is what it is, right? Same thing with Chris Curtis. Drops Sam Alvey, finishes him. You see a lot of club and subs. So people say, like, he doesn't have TKOs. Yeah, that's true, but that's because even if he hurts someone, he goes for the sub usually. Obviously, a bad idea against RDR, but if he's able to pivot, I mean, again, knockdown against Bruno Silva, club and sub again. So he has a fair amount of knockdowns here, and these aren't the only times he's hurt someone on the feet. He's hurt other people on the feet and then shot. So we're not talking about, like, someone who does not hurt people on the feet on a regular. Early predictions for Charles versus Max. I don't know. My natural instinct was to lean Max because Charles' striking defense didn't look spectacular. There is a possibility Charles just ragdolls him and subs him, though. Because even though Holloway's defense is usually really good, in a scramble, he's going to be behind Oliveira, which could pose a problem. But if I had to pick now, I'd pick Max. So you think with this optimal scoring system, Holloway should have won the second Volk fight? I'd agree with that. Yeah, he would have. Thoughts on Strickland versus Fluffy? I would pick Strickland. I think he's just too technical. Outside of 10-10 rounds, from my understanding, this criteria is actually written much more similarly to what you described. Somewhat. I mean, the problem is that 10-8 rounds right now are not given out very often, to say the least. Allen definitely has as much, if not more power than Whitaker. Yeah, definitely more power than Whitaker. Holloway high-key cooks my King Oliveira, but I still have some hope, like maybe Charles gets him down and back takes. Yeah, it's possible. I think the 4th round should be 10-8, 10-9 should be close rounds, 10-7 would be the modern 10-8, and a 10-7 would be a Pereira Roundtree Moicano BSD situation where it isn't even close. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm saying. In what way would you see Islam beating JDM, and in what way would you see it the other way around? I mean, if JDM's going to win, he's just going to chain him on the feet, most likely. It's just because Islam doesn't have the best defense after he throws the lead hook. So if JDM baits out the lead hook, jumps in with a combo after slipping the hook, then he could definitely put him out. If Islam wins, okay, maybe JDM just does not have as good takedown defense as we may think, because Bilal isn't the best fighter, to say the least. So that could happen. Otherwise, it will be like JDM dropping his hands to stuff a takedown and Islam cracks him on the feet. Can you name a fighter who lost all their lethality after a loss? It's a good question. There's definitely many, but not off the top of my head. The club and sub tendency and Allen's IQ does make me lean towards RDR now. Yeah, I get what you mean. I get why. What's your early thoughts on Dawson versus Torres? I know Dawson is the easy pick, but I'm taking Torres early finish. I think Dawson will spend too much time standing. Yeah, no, I think Torres knocks him out very early. I think Dawson is not going to just shoot instantly, and if you don't, then Torres has to hit you once. He was this close to winning the Fluffy fight. Yeah, for sure. How do you beat Ilya? You counter his right hand, because he loads up very heavily on the right hand, which gives you opportunities. Thoughts on Islam's footwork? I don't love it. He'll back straight up a lot of the time. How can Islam beat Ilya? I mean, he has to like prove that Ilya just can't wrestle, basically, which I don't think is going to happen because we've seen that he can. So I don't see Islam having much a chance against Ilya. Luke after the Jeff Neal fight. Yeah, that is true, but he did bring it back against what's his name? The fight after. Greenbow. He brought it back against Greenbow when he dropped him and subbed him. I believe a southpaw grappler with very good head kicks and beat Taporia. Damn body and head kicks. Keep clinching as soon as Ilya shoots too hard and go for the clinch. It's very possible. I just don't think it's going to happen, because especially for Islam to win, he has to he's going to have to take him down. He's going to have to either be on the ground or be completely disengaged. Because every time they're in the striking, Topuria has such a massive advantage and can chin him at any time. Topuria has also proven that he can take a shot. So even if Islam's able to land on the feet, it's not going to mean anything, most likely. So Topuria just has so many advantages, I don't really see it. If Allen sleeps with one punch and flatlines him, what are the odds you think Allen will go for the sub before the ref calls the fight off? It's possible, unfortunately. As a fight IQ joke. I mean, yeah, but it's not even fully a joke. Like, you would be someone to do that. What were your thoughts on Alvarez-Luque? Alvarez looked fairly good early, but his boxing defense definitely needs work, and for some reason he looked very gassed at the beginning of the third. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great look for Alvarez, in my opinion. I know it was short notice, but his striking defense did not look improved going up to welterweight, which was a big question I had. So unless he's able to get that under control, he's going to have a lot of issues, in my opinion. In your opinion, what was the most impressive fight from Contender Series this week? Probably Oliveira. I think you might have answered this before, but what do you think? But do you think Islam retires if he loses to JDM? Yes, I do. But yeah, over 25 minutes, what is the possibility he can't land a single punch? Yeah, exactly. Can you bore Ilya to a win, like if Zalal Forrest Gumps around the octagon? I don't think so, because the problem is that even if you're immensely boring and try to win that way, Ilya will land like one punch and then get the round back. Best chance someone had of beating Topuria was in a 3-rounder. Honestly, I don't think if it's 3 or 5 rounds makes that much difference. Because I think to beat Topuria, you do have to knock him out, or at least severely hurt him. If it was anyone other than Luque, I don't think Alvarez is eating half those shots he got hit clean with. I mean, Luque does hit hard, to be fair, but I do get what you mean. Alvarez did not look properly bulked up for welterweight, a little small in the cage. Maybe. It was also, like, yeah, in all fairness to him, it was pretty short notice, but it was not something that made me think he's going to make a run at welterweight. What are your early thoughts on Brady versus Morales? Kind of like Dawson versus Torres to me, where everyone is hot on the grappler, but I could see Morales having good takedown defense and out striking him. It's definitely possible, but I think that Brady is going to move forwards and pressure a lot more, and it's going to look good to the judges. So even if it ends up being a close fight, Brady will probably get the decision. I could also see Morales stuffing the first few takedowns and then giving up like one and getting subbed, because with Brady it does not take much. Thoughts on Woodley saying JDM wouldn't even be ranked in his era? Woodley says a lot of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I very much disagree. Or Morales just spinning elbows, his Ronda Rousey boxing. I think that, I don't think his boxing is that bad by any means. Not jokes aside, Brady round 2 sub is the bet to go. Yeah, I think so. Morales has potential. I'm not going to say he doesn't by any means, but there's nothing that I've seen out of him that would make me think that he is going to be able to outpoint or survive Brady for now. Jeff Neal versus Alvarez. I think Jeff can punish those defensive holes. Yeah, I do as well. I think that Jeff Neal might be the pick against Alvarez. RDR by sub in rounds 3 or 4 plus 1,000, good or not? I mean, if you just want a value play, you could sprinkle it, but I don't think it's going to hit. I think... Actually, I could see the logic. I don't hate it, I'll say that. Rory McDonald embarrassed He would back in the day, and he said himself JDM would beat a lot of the guys in his time in his division. Yeah. How do you think Brady versus Shavkat would go? I'm going to favor Brady because I think that Shavkat's not going to be able to clinch and stall against the fence like he was able to against Gary. And while Shavkat definitely has a striking advantage over Brady, Brady's gotten fairly defensively sound. And then as soon as Brady gets a takedown, gets it on the hips, which we've seen you could do against Shavkat now, I think that he will be able to sub him. Jeff struggles with long, rangy guys too much, though. You could say that, I guess. I think the problem for Alvarez there, though, is you're not going to take Jeff's shots. Like even Luque probably has less pure power than Jeff does. So if Jeff lands like Luque did, I don't think it's going to go well for Alvarez. The Woodley comment reminds me of Rampage saying recently he'd run through light heavyweight today. How do you think Prime Rampage does in current day? Prime Rampage wouldn't be ranked. John or Diego? In a rematch, I'm still taking John. What's an elite fighter with an embarrassing loss like Stipe losing to Struve? A lot of elite fighters have like super random losses. Like again, even Rob lost to Ricky Simone, right? And he had another loss before that. It was like to a complete nobody. So there's a lot of champions who had losses to nobodies. Do you think Aljo could become featherweight champion? Very unlikely, in my opinion. Alan KO at round 1 or 2 plus 1100. That's a good one. Yeah, fair. Brady hasn't gotten defensively sound, in my opinion. He was eating quite a bit of counters from Leon. I think he tries to be like Bilal style, Wasby does. But he, I assume you say, doesn't have the chin. In my opinion, I think that will show again. That's possible, but I think that he was doing a very good job of keeping his guard up. So even though he was eating the shots to some extent, it was kind of how Jan eats shots. Like, he'll get hit, but it's not clean, so he doesn't really take that much damage from it. I honestly really want to see Leon versus John. I think that would be a super slick fight. Yeah, that would be fun. In the clinch, I believe he would butcher Brady. The way he landed the knee on Walt Harris would have definitely had him. The reason why he couldn't do that against Ian is because Ian is 6'3" himself. I think that if you get into the clinch with Brady, though, you're really risking getting taken down. Because as soon as Brady actually gets his hands locked anywhere, he's very strong. You forget light heavyweight sucks right now. Like you're telling me Prime Rampage couldn't beat Alonzo Menafield. Okay, I think people really glorified that era of light heavyweight. While it was a fun era of light heavyweight, the fighters were not the best, to say the least. Like, yeah, I would probably take Alonzo Menafield to knock out Rampage. Bilal or Brady? It's a tough call, because Bilal is always going to have a really bad style for Brady. But I do think that Brady is progressing more than Bilal is, so I would just very narrowly maybe lean Brady. What do you think about Lost Soul MMA? I have no idea who that is, to be honest. Do you see anything promising from the Brashov brothers, even though Javid got clocked like a 9-to-5 job? I don't, to be honest. Even the recent fight with Farid fighting, what's his name, Gutierrez, he did well in rounds 1 to 2, but he looked so bad in round 3 that it was not a good look. Thoughts on Blachowicz versus Guskov? I think Blachowicz can chin him. By the way, I saw one of your old videos where you said Krylov is a nightmare matchup for Poetan. Yeah, that was Krylov pre-injury, and then Krylov got injured, looked like a shadow of himself, and that aged very badly, very quickly. But I do think that pre-injury Krylov would have been very tough for Alex. Yeah, Menafield Rampage is actually a close fight. Yeah, exactly. What's your thoughts on Henry versus Payton? Very odd fight to make, in my opinion, but I actually favor Payton. Yeah, I have to lean towards Talbot. Especially with Henry's age, and I can't imagine he'll be as durable as he used to be, but I also would not be shocked if Talbot got pieced up on the feet, because his striking defense has been abysmal. Yuri versus Olberg. Love Yuri, but thinks he gets smoked. It really depends on what version of Yuri shows up. Because if it's the Yuri who fought even, say, Hill, I think he has a very good chance in the fight. If it's the Yuri who fought Roundtree, that's not going to go well for him. So I'm going to pick Yuri just because I think the Yuri we have seen most fights wins. But that's a very uncertain pick because if he shows up the way he did against Roundtree, it's not going well. Krylov used to be a dogman. Yeah, exactly. It felt like Farid only won because Gutierrez was Vera maxing. Yeah, I don't know what Gutierrez was doing, just did not want to throw anything. To be fair, he's done that a few times now, so it's not shocking, but... Ian or Brady? I'd lean Brady as well there, but I'm also not confident. Also, thoughts on Hyder Emil versus Emmers. Emil is so fun, but I'm worried he might not be enough to get past him. I have a very low opinion of Hyder Emil's skill set. I mean, he basically just brawls and blocks punches with his chin. It's entertaining, I'll say that for sure. But I can't pick him against a semi-legitimate fighter, so I think Emmers probably knocks him on round one. You think Jacoby Smith makes it far in welterweight? Not if that's his cardio. He gassed out in like 3 minutes. That was a very bad look. That being said, he has time to progress, so if I'm being realistic about it, right? I think he will break the rankings at least at some point, yes. But he definitely needs to show that his cardio is improved. Brady or Ilya? Ilya. Did you hear Big Nog tried to feed Piper's most recent opponents a carrot? That's funny. How do you think Protez does against Usman, Bilal, Brady, and JDM? I think that Brady's tough for him because he's going to push him back and then keep shooting. JDM's tough for him because he can keep pushing him back as well. I think Protez could probably chin Usman, though. Bilal, his pressure might be a problem, so it really depends on how Protez is able to react to it. I'm going to probably lean Protez barely against Bilal because his defense is so terrible, but I will lean towards Protez, yeah. Oh yeah, Emil definitely sucks. I hope he frauds his way through the division. It'd be so fun. Fair. How about DDP versus Ellen or Ellen versus Kaio? Ellen is talented, but not special in any way, nor is he good enough to technically win over the top contenders. Yeah, DDP would probably destroy Ellen. And then Kaio, I would still pick Kaio as well, but I do think it is more winnable for Ellen. Protez beats Bilal, Usman, and probably JDM, but I'm not too confident about JDM pick. I don't think he beats JDM, but I also would not be shocked. But I do agree, probably beats Bilal and Usman. Thoughts on the Weasel saying Alexander Gustafsson beats everyone at light heavyweight today? Okay. 2 things here. One, I love Gustafsson. My second or third favorite light heavyweight of all time. Very close in light heavyweight because for some reason there's a lot of very likable light heavyweights. I usually put Jan as my favorite light heavyweight of all time. Yuri is usually second, sometimes first. Gus is like second, sometimes third type of thing. So I do love Gus, and I feel like he's super underrated, and I feel like he got robbed of the belt twice. So I definitely feel for him. That being said, his chances against Alex are not very high, in my opinion. I think that against our punchers who are able to just come forwards in a technically sound manner, Gustafsson was always going to have problems. So I think that Alex would very, very likely beat Gustafsson, even though I like Gustafsson a lot more personally. Brady is 200 off camp. The sloppiest takedown Brady shoots will get Ilya down. I don't see how Ilya wins and gets a 10-second KO by him. He could just uppercut Brady, because Brady doesn't have like spectacular takedown setups. They are, once he gets on you, he's very sticky, but he doesn't get deep very easily. So I definitely think Ilya would catch him as he's shooting, or just be able to sidestep and then catch him instantly. I think JDM is a nightmare matchup for Usman. Usman's never done well with strikers, I assume, who put combos together. Yes, I agree there. KO decision, probably, yeah. Do you think Strickland does Allen like he did the first fight? Yeah, pretty much. I do think so. Very likable heavyweights like John Jones, such a nice family, man. Oh boy. He definitely beat DC, but I had it clear 2-3, 2-4-5 for Jones. I rewatched the fight somewhat recently, and I did think Gus won it, but I will say it was a closer fight than the DC one. Alex Pereira versus Rumble. I would say Alex probably wins, but it's never certain you're going to win against Rumble because he's so fast. You ever been to a UFC event, Oracle? Unfortunately not. The prices have been so ridiculous. Do you think that Ray has beat Jones? Yeah, definitely. Or makes Rumble quit early, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's a very high chance that Rumble comes in and just eats a lead hook. Who would have won between Rumble and Jones? I would like to think that Rumble makes his jaw meet the back of his throat. I think I would obviously be rooting for Rumble, but I think that Jones probably just survives early and then jokes him out later. Because Rumble will slow down if you just survive, and Jones is a fighter who would just run around for 3 rounds, wait for him to slow down, and then choke him out. So I think that's what would happen, unfortunately. Rumble versus Poeta and his power personified valid. Do you think so little of Bruno Silva? Do you put anything into Van's win against him? I mean, it was a very clean way to win, but do I think that like that means anything specific about Van? Not necessarily. I'd pick most people against Bruno Silva. Or just leg kicks Rumble and cooks him later. Valid. What's up, Oracle? Hey, Draft. I rewatched Yuri versus Glover and it made me realize how hard Rumble hits. Yeah, exactly. Oddly enough, but I think Sean is DDP's best win. No one has beaten Sean the way DDP did, and really there's still a lot of contenders that we think Sean beats, so Israel and Rob are a little overrated in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of the older light heavyweights are overrated. They were good fighters, but people act like they would dominate today. Alex and Yuri knocks out DC. Yeah, definitely would knock out DC, yes. I thought Van would struggle against Silva for some reason. I forgot during the fight they both fought Jourdain, and the fights were worlds different. Yeah, definitely, definitely very different fights against Jourdain. Coppa versus Josh Van thoughts, it would be fun. Yeah, I do think that Josh Van would probably win, but it would definitely be a fun fight. Silly question, but how do you think Chimaev versus Pereira would go? Especially considering if Hamza gets a little bigger like he normally is. I think that Pereira has a solid chance of beating Hamza just because his game planning for it will be so good. So I do think that what he's probably going to do is, well, okay, there's 2 ways of approaching it. There's force Chimaev to shoot on the back foot and look for the knee or uppercut, which is definitely something that Pereira has done before and would not surprise me if he opted for. The other thing to do is you circle on the back foot and you force Chimaev to take a bad shot, and you try to knock him out off of that shot. Both are very, very viable there, and I think Pereira would just choose whatever is the highest percentage for him and probably catch Chimaev and put him away. DC was eating big left lead hooks and overhands from Josh Barnett and Strikeforce. Rumble lands once, and since DC flying, Rumble power is different. Yeah. I agree, Chuck Tato and Couture were great, but the laws of today would laws? I assume you just mean fighters of today would school them, but yeah. Actually, what's the most entertaining matchup you could think of that could realistically be made? I mean, what weight class? What commentator should be fired? Rogan, DC for sure. I'm okay with Felder. I'm okay with Sanko. I'm actually okay with Cruz, even though he can be a little bit hit or miss. I'd say get rid of Anik also, because even though he's a known voice, he just makes up stuff while he's commentating. Like, a strike will whiff by like 3 feet, and then he'll be like, "Oh, good jab from whoever." I'm like, what? Laura Cinco, my favorite commentator, only next to Cruz. He's my actual favorite ballad. Any weight class. I'd like to see. Let's see. I want to see Pantoja Merab. Bisping has been pretty bad lately. Yeah, he has. Who has the best footwork in the UFC? There's a few good choices. I don't think there's a singular choice. Poirier and Holloway are both good choices. Bisping, yeah. Anik does it all the time. Yeah, it's so bad. Bisping was annoying at the Rio card. Yeah, I agree. Big left hand by Al-Clive when it didn't even grace Prairie. Yeah, exactly. I know he's catching a lot of hate right now, but I genuinely think Prime Connor would have the best chance to put Ilyana on a shirt. Am I crazy or Brendan Allen? No, I agree with you. I do think that Connor was the worst matchup possible for Ilya. Between the southpaw, the focus on the left hand, the fact that he would look to counter the overhands, I do think that Connor would have been a very bad matchup for him. What pisses me off about DC is he literally admits to not taking notes as a commentator. Rogan is just goofy now. Yeah, it's really bad. Filter's easily the best. That's fair. Thanks for the longer stream, Markle. No problem. Guru made a very good observation. The Anik seems to hate dead air. Like he just says anything, even if nothing is happening. Yeah, that's a very good read, in my opinion. I think that the right way to handle it would be to just talk about what the fighter should be game planning, what they're thinking, whatever, something like that. But yeah, I mean, how he solves it, I guess. Who you got, Pantoja Merab, then? I would very mildly lean Merab, but I would not be surprised no matter who won. How did you have Henry Song scored before the eye poke? I had Song up 3 rounds, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, but Prime featherweight McGregor beats every other single featherweight champ that there has been. The biggest problem for him would have been Holloway, because the way that Connor fought, especially then, if he couldn't put away Holloway early, which he might have, by the way, like, people just assume that he definitely couldn't, but there's definitely a chance that he finishes Holloway early. But if he does not, then he definitely might have lost in later rounds. Rogan literally shows up to do nothing but try to be as obnoxious and ignorant as possible while talking on a broken record about past opinions. Yeah, no, Rogan literally just shows up to insult the fans. It's actually kind of crazy. He literally just shows up and calls the fans casuals repetitively. Like, I'm pretty sure the average fan there watches more UFC than he does now. I was at UFC 278, Usman versus Edwards 2 live. That was insane, but Sapori Emmett was sick. Wonderboy Holland was a great card, valid. Yeah, I would definitely like to go to more of them, or any of them to start with, but the prices are so crazy, especially a decent seat, that I just can't justify it for myself right now. I think Anik is good because he could bring up the status of a fighter's custody over their child. That was certainly a comment. Yeah, Prime Connor loses to Prime Holloway. Very possible. They fought at featherweight when Holloway was a baby and Max survived it perfectly fine. Yes, that is true. To be fair, though, Connor was very compromised in that fight. So I don't think it's necessarily a perfect representation of him, but yes. Sorry to ask in case you answered already, but who do you got between Belal and Ian Gary? I have Ian Gary. I think he's just better everywhere, honestly. Rogan lives in a microcosm. His commentary hasn't changed in 20 years. Yes, true. If you had to pick 5-ish fighters to end their career and replace the commentary team, who would you pick? That's a good question. So let me look at the rankings. I guess no one really ranked right now, but that makes sense because it's probably a lot of the older fighters. Oh, a good option would be Wonderboy, in my opinion. I don't like. I will watch Wonderboy fight every time, but I don't really need to see Wonderboy fight more. And he would be a great commentator, in my opinion. How would Prime GSP do if we dropped him in the middle of the welterweight division right now? He would still do pretty well, in my opinion. He would be top 5 at a minimum. Imagine Whitaker on commentary or Volk, but I can see them be poisoned by UFC to just talk about nothing and be stupid as well. Yeah, that is valid. Where I went to UFC 286, $700 for a nosebleed. I had to get through it, but it hurt. Yeah, I just would not. I just personally couldn't do it. Yeah, it was so infuriating. He was like, how can anyone dislike Ankalaev? Like, Ankalaev didn't have 2 back-to-back boring decisions leading up to the fight. Valid. Pretty sure Holloway dropped McGregor with a head kick in their fight. What? I don't remember that happening. Maybe I'm crazy. Corey would probably be a good commentator, although a little dry. Yeah, true. Stipe would be #1 commentator on everyone's so we'd all love that. I mean, honestly, he would say more logical stuff than DC or Rogan, so. Bad question, I suppose. Maybe just fighters that have good commentator potential. Yeah, I mean, I would say my peak choice for that would be Wonderboy. Who's your GOAT at 135? It has to be Merab now, in my opinion. Never getting Wonderboy Leon was kind of crazy. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Usman would be a good commentator basically at the end of his career anyways. I don't know if Usman would be a good commentator. He feels like he would be like DC and that he would just start glazing wrestlers nonstop. DC literally asks the dumbest questions I've ever heard. Like, he doesn't routinely sit in the front row for most pay-per-views in the year, and asks Rogan for the answers. It's just too crazy to think they get paid. Valid. Merab, Nate Diaz, and Henry Cejudo would be good commentators. That would be something. I think you have to Holloway Pantoja instead of looking for big shots, wilt him and break him. I think Van's got a solid chance. I think you have to focus on body shots instead of looking for the head, because his chin is ridiculous. But yeah, if you can throw volume to the body, maybe you could. I went to 308 last year just to see all my heroes get brutalized. $2,500 for tickets. Flights weren't too expensive. I have residential visa. Experience was 8 out of 10, but Holloway getting chinned, oof. Yeah, that's rough. $2,500 is also so much money. But like, yeah, if you can afford it, definitely worth it. What do you think of Jean Pork's fight, and how do you reckon he does in the UFC? So I talked about this earlier, but I think that his style of striking, which a few people have had, is very bad for fighting in the UFC. It looks very pretty, and everyone assumes it will do very well. It's very similar to Guram, which is why, again, everyone thought Guram was going to be amazing, and then he fought decent strikers and got absolutely destroyed. The style of striking has pretty much no defense, which is why John Pork got dropped by a not incredibly high-level fighter on Contender Series, and will probably get knocked out by someone in the UFC. Still can't believe how they robbed Wonderboy with the Bonfim fight. Yeah, it was not great. Honestly, no Usman on his podcast. Little bro Cejudo when Cejudo glazes wrestling too much. Okay, that's interesting. I like Sanko in commentary, but everyone on the panel feels obligated to just annoy her and be overly friendly to her. They try to make it weird, and then it makes her on commentary weird. Fair, I guess. I don't know. I bet Bonfim, but I thought Wonderboy edged him. Yeah, I do think Wonderboy won the fight after rewatching it. Ticket prices are disgusting, especially if you compare it to other sports. Yes. Pantoja definitely has top 3 chins, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Azakura land a flying knee that Pantoja didn't react to at all? The flying knee didn't land flush on the chin. It landed a little bit lower. The part did hit the chin. I think kind of like the thigh hit the chin or something like that. But he has definitely eaten a lot of big shots and been okay. Iron G costs low damage, Vera. Sean versus featherweight. How far does he go? Let's see. I could see him getting top 5, but not further. John Perk will be an Elvsbrenner type fighter. I think he'll be more like Grum, honestly. I am going to promo the betting service one more time. If you guys are betting on this event or in general and are not yet in the service, we're up over 250 units on the year, and I hit the plus 2,500 bet, I think 2 weeks ago now. So, link is in the description for that. Sign up if you haven't already. Always feel free to DM me on Instagram with questions. That took a few tries. The quad hit the chin, the kneecap hit the collarbone. Yeah, sounds right. How do you think Talbot versus Cejudo will play out? I think Cejudo is just too outdated for today's MMA. That's very possible. I think that as long as Talbot improved his striking defense a little bit, he'll be okay. But I could see him getting caught by Cejudo because he just blocks punches with his chin. John or Marab? I could see John landing the lead hook and putting him out the longer I think about it. Where do you rank Dos Anjos all the time at 155? Maybe around like the 5 to 7 range? Question mark. Maybe a little lower. I don't rank him that high, to be honest. Who's the most 50-50 matchup you could think of currently in the UFC? Good question. Maybe Armin Charles. Did you see Dana White Contender Series? That Moroccan fighter has heart, but doesn't get far, in my opinion. Yes, he definitely has heart. What the nice thing for him is that he's very young, and he has time to fix his issues. So if he takes that fight and is like, okay, yeah, I need to fix my defense so I don't get chinned, then he might go far. Also, Fight of the Frauds, who would you pick between Azakura and Patchy Mix? I'd pick Azakura at this point. I'm not picking Patchy Mix to win a single fight in the UFC. At this point, does anyone beat Marab or Ilya? Honestly, not likely. Shout out to Gaudier peeling his opponent off like a tick. Hilarious. Yeah, that was a fight. RDA is around 6 to 7 in my opinion. That's valid. Alright, probably going to wrap up the stream now, since we've been at it for a while. Thank you all for coming again today, and enjoy this event. Good luck in betting if you are betting. Hope to see you in the betting service. I do want to start streaming more, as I have said a few times. Next week, if I have time, I may try to do 2 streams, but no guarantee there. We'll see. I'll always update on like both the Discord and Instagram stories, so we'll see what happens. But have a good night, everyone, and I'll see you guys soon.